And we're looking at the source analysis for Group 184. The contenders were KT Tunstall's Invisible Empire Crescent Moon,
Ed Sheeran's Plus Eye.
Within Temptations, The Silent Force, and Starsailor's On the Outside. Quite a mix.
A very eclectic group. And the title given to the outcome says it all, really. The Silent Force on the Outside eclipses the Crescent Moon plus Ed Sheeran.
It really does. And that result, well, it tells us a lot about how this specific listening method works, maybe even more than about the albums themselves in isolation.
Okay, let's dig in. Starting at the bottom, 4th place, KT Tunstall. Invisible Empire Crescent Moon. The source was, well, pretty harsh. Called it the best insomnia cure for 2013. Ouch.
It's brutal, but interestingly, it wasn't knocking the actual skill. The musicianship was praised, delicate drumming, that jazzy feel.
With the brushwork and stuff.
Yeah, top notch. But the overall mood, the pace, the reviewer found it just relentlessly downbeat, sullen, even lifeless compared to her earlier energy.
So that back-to-back listening format really punished the lack of dynamics, didn't it?
Absolutely. It just stayed in one gear, apparently.
Needed a big moment. Like a suddenly I see, just to wake things up a bit, shake it out of that sonic slumber, as the review hinted.
Well, if KT Tunstall was the insomnia cure, Ed Sheeran coming in 3rd with his debut, plus, that's pronounced plus, right?
Okay, plus?
Okay, plus he at least offered lyrical poetry, according to the source, but still not enough to advance.
The review said it was something like 99% folk-esque balladry, which, ultimately made it a tad dull overall.
A bit one note, perhaps. But there was one track singled out for praise.
Give Me Love.
Exactly. Give Me Love was highlighted, called a majestic ballad, really praised the clinical musicianship.
And didn't they mention Peter Gabriel?
They did. A nod to Peter Gabriel specifically for how it mixed in that almost tribal chant chorus with the folk melody. Really sophisticated arrangement there.
But just one standout track wasn't enough for the win.
Seems not. Which brings us to the survivors, the top 2. In 2nd place, Starsailor with On the Outside. And this one seemed to succeed through sheer consistency.
Yeah, that's the impression I got. High quality, across the board, well put together songs, solid playing.
The source mentioned comparisons, like Razorlight, maybe a bit of Keen sometimes.
Okay.
But the key seemed to be the vocalist, James Walsh. His delivery, especially on tracks like Faith, Hope, Love, was called out for having this authentic swagger.
So it wasn't necessarily groundbreaking, but just consistently good and engaging.
That's the takeaway. Just a much more interesting listen, apparently, than the bottom 2 when heard back-to-back.
But it still didn't win. The clear winner, the one that apparently jumped out of left field, Within Temptations, The Silent Force.
This is where that methodology really rewarded something different. Big-time contrasts.
How did the source describe it? Utterly sweeping, melodramatic.
Full-on, epic, opera-goth metal.
Yeah, it's a specific sound. If you're not familiar, think really lush, almost delicate, operatic soprano vocals.
Right, very melodic.
Layered over really heavy, chugging metal guitars in these big symphonic arrangements. That contrast is huge.
So the beautiful voice against the heavy riffs.
Exactly. That stark difference practically guaranteed it would stand out dramatically in that kind of sequential listening test. It grabs your attention.
And they loved specific tracks, right? Wasn't Jillian mentioned?
Yes, Jillian was called out as, majestic, brilliant, one of the highlights. But that track also brought up a funny observation in the source.
Oh.
What was that? Well, the reviewer noted it's this huge, epic song, right? But then asks, kind of rhetorically, but who calls a rock song Jillian? That's a good point. It does sound a bit ordinary.
Exactly. It raises this interesting little question about naming conventions in rock. Does a really plain, almost mundane title sometimes hide the most massive, powerful musical statement on a heavy album? It's like counterintuitive packaging.
That's fascinating. Something to think about. Okay, so the final verdict. Within Temptation and Starsailor advance. This whole album quest really shows that this kind of structured listening, it doesn't just reward overall quality, does it?
No, it seems to really reward contrast, like Within Temptation, or at least very strong consistency, like Starsailor.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, when you're forced to rank albums immediately after hearing them one after another, does that surprise factor, that genre-bending contrast, usually beat out steady, reliable quality?
That seems to be the big question raised here. Does the extreme contrast, like Within Temptation sound, almost always win in this format, even over something consistently strong like Starsailor?
It's a compelling point. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Does this kind of search for the ultimate sonic champion naturally lean towards the unexpected, the theatrical? And thinking about that KT Tunstall review, which album in your own collection might need a good shakeup, needs to be jolted out of its slumber?